allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Madam Clerk, could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Christine Adamczak.
Here.
Councilmember Linda Hammer. Here. Councilmember Michael Jazinski. Here. Councilmember Gerald Kaminsky. Councilmember Brian Nowak.
Present.
Councilmember Brian Pilarski.
Present.
Supervisor Diane Benchkowski.
Here. Okay, we have 7 members present. At this time, I need to make a motion to enter executive session for matters leading to the appointment of a particular person. Could I get a second, please? Councilmember Adamczak. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. So hopefully we'll be back in 15, 20 minutes. just waiting for Linda, right?
Oh, you know what? I think she's trying to set the AC in the room or shut it off.
Oh, maybe put it on.
Put it on, I think that's what
I
she
don't know
was
why, yeah, that was, it felt like the
Yeah.
heat was on there.
It did. It was warm up there.
I'll make a motion to come out of executive session. Do I have a second? Councilmember Hammer, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, we'll go on to our items of discussion. First, we have, is Kristen Devereaux, are you here? Hi, Kristen, nice to meet you. Come on up to the podium and the speaker and try to speak right into the microphone. Yeah, why don't you, yes, thank you, Councilmember Noah.
I have my colleague Jen with me as well.
All right, speak in, because we're tape recording and we're actually streaming live, so
Okay.
if you don't speak right into it, the audience can't hear you.
Okay, so we're ready to go?
Yes, we
All
are.
right,
Thank
everybody
you.
can hear me? All right, good. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having Jennifer and I here. My name is Kristen Devereaux. I am the president of Envision Benefits Group. Oh, you can go to the next slide. I just want to give you a little background on myself. I've been in the insurance and HR consulting role for 17 years. Sorry, insurance 17, HR consulting for 10. Our focus at the agency is really employee benefits and HR consulting, and that's what we're here today to talk about. Jen?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer Fidanza. I work with Kristen. I'm a licensed health, insurance, and safety broker. And I've been in the Buffalo area for over 20 years in a sales leadership capacity, but really my forte is in business-to-business development and relationships. And we're hoping we can start a relationship with the town of Cheektowaga tonight.
So one of the things I guess I mentioned before is that we are HR consulting, and a lot of people think about that as a replacement of jobs. Our role is to come in and help the current structure that you have in here. So I know that you have about 3 or 4 employees in the personnel department. I know the head of personnel is leaving. Our role is to come in and help streamline some of the administration and get some of the projects that you've been trying to get done in a quick and timely way. You can, yep, and the next one. Okay. So in our discussion with Diane and Brian over the last couple days and taking a look at the personnel, thank you so much, at the personnel department's job description currently, we think that there's 2 distinct components that we can that we want to focus on as we think about replacing this position. So one is labor relations, contract negotiation, employee relations, and everything pertaining to union, employee grievances, things like that. Number 2 is HR consulting, compliance, benefits, training, day-to-day policies, procedures, things like that. Okay? So we're not designed, our agency is not designed to facilitate the needs of number 1. We really feel like the town can use a full-time labor relations expert in-house. That won't be our role. Where we think we can really shine is number 2. We don't do all of these, though.
So yeah, that's exactly where we are experts, Human Resource Administration and Employee Benefit Administration. And what we want to talk through the promotion or the proposal tonight is about technology and modernization. When we were speaking with Diane and Brian, that was one of the key things that we want to bring everybody up to date and moving ahead. And I want to always caution everybody, technology is not scary. It makes things a lot easier, and eliminating the paper is very helpful for everyone.
So over the next 6 slides or so, we're going to talk at a really high level on the things that we feel we can bring to the bottom line for the town. What can we do? What projects can we take on and help your team with? So the first one are policies in the handbook. So in 2022, New York State came out with 2 brand new policies. They required organizations to create their own policies. They didn't give us model notices. They wanted both in the handbook, one to be a standalone policy that had to be signed off on by new hires, and of course both had to have the required postings. So keeping up with all of that is very difficult. We took the lead for our clients. We created those policies for them, put them in their handbooks, sent them their handbooks, sent them the required postings, all before either one of those laws came into play. So we keep our clients completely compliant, as easy and as fast as we can. So for the town, we would review, modernize, create policies for any policies that were missing. We would update the current handbook, make sure we maintain that handbook, because as you know, and Brian said, those handbooks go out of date as soon as they're written. But our job is to keep that up to date with policies new and changing. So job descriptions, oh, sorry, go ahead.
And really, the handbook flows right into the job descriptions. The handbook really provides a resource for all of the associates. It also helps establish the culture within the organization. So job descriptions in today's labor market are key for both attraction and retention of associates, and especially in this job market, we need to be electronically savvy with our job descriptions and our postings, and also very modern. We could use these modern job descriptions to also do advertising for your job positions. We focus on that as well at Envision. And we would work with the department heads and leadership on job description and content, and really making sure that we can use these also for performance management and promotion within the organization.
Next, we want to talk about onboarding. We feel like bringing technology into this piece is pretty key. I know as a new hire in some organizations, I've walked in on my first day and had to fill out what looked like a closing on a house. So with technology, we would allow employees to be able to onboard electronically before they ever set foot on Town of Cheektowaga property. They could do all of it at home. Their I-9, W-4, 2104, they could sign off on the town policies, they can read the handbook and acknowledge it. All of that is done, even the required training, before they ever come in day one. We can also customize the tool that we use to include a letter from the supervisor, a note on culture, where to park on your first day, what your dress code is, anything and everything that you can think of that a new hire would need to know, we can insert in there and make sure that they have access to that. And looking forward into today and in the future, the technology that we use for onboarding is called EASE. It does integrate with all of the newest and oldest HRIS systems as well. Sure, it's EASE, E-A-S-E. And that connects with payroll and HRIS systems as well. So I'm not sure what payroll system you have, but it can integrate. Next slide is leave administration. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to keep up with how many leave laws there are in New York State, but it's something that we do best. So we help council employees on leave, help them understand their eligibility for leaves, how they can take it, when they can take it, how to fill out the forms, getting those forms to the carrier, getting the carrier the required medical certification, and then of course, on the flip side, bringing that employee safely back to work as quickly as possible. So we would do all of that. And again, this is just a support and service for the current people that are doing these things today. We would take the burden of the administration off their plate and go ahead and take over that project for them.
I see that you would do the FMLA, possible COVID leave.
Yep, paid family
paid
leave.
Okay, that's
workers'
what,
comp.
yeah, that's what we do. Okay.
Yep, any and all leaves, disability.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the return to work.
And the return to work, yes.
Mhm.
So we would also work with your payroll department to make sure that they're properly marked out on leave. Payroll isn't trying to pay someone who actively isn't here, and then let payroll know when they're coming back from
That's
leave.
wonderful. We need
so
more
that-
communication
Yes.
with the payroll and the HR, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's good.
Okay. So training, during our discussion, Diane
Yeah,
and
talk
Brian-
into the microphone.
during our discussions with Brian and Diane, they did share a need for departmental training. They said that was very important, but with the current bandwidth, it's just not there. So we would be able to uncover what training is needed, formalize a plan for each employee in each department, who needs the training, how often they need the training, and of course, create records for compliance purposes. Our goal would be to keep costs down. So we would leverage instructors for training from current insurance carriers and vendors. Our team, obviously, would be part of that. And then we have an electronic library of trainings that we would use to facilitate any trainings that we could from an electronic standpoint. And we'll talk more about that on the next slide. In addition to employee training, we would also be able to do management training. We would do that at the supervisory level, and it would include things like leave, passive and active, what to listen for, how to know when to push them down to the personnel department, performance management, coaching, harassment, and discrimination. Okay. And then, as I said on the last slide, we do have a library of 150 different electronic trainings. This includes OSHA training, bloodborne pathogen, harassment, diversity, management, customer service training, new supervisor training, you name it, it's out there. These can be taken at the employee's leisure, or we can also use them in a big forum. If we had a large group of folks for a particular training, we can put them right up in front of a TV screen or what have you and get the trainings done quicker and more efficiently. So before we move on to employee benefits, I just want to ask if there's any questions on what we just talked about with HR.
I just was wondering if you did the sexual harassment training, so,
Yes, we do. We do them in person or through the electronic platform.
okay. Good.
Okay, well, this one's mine. So let's talk about benefit administration. In the discussion with Brian that we had, we found out that the town is currently using paper-based enrollment forms to get everybody enrolled in insurance. We'd like to suggest we would use ease for that. So not only would we use ease for onboarding, but we would also use it for benefit administration. So if you think about that employee coming in, they're doing their I-9 and doing all of their policies and their training, well, the next step would be that they're enrolling in their benefits. And they can do that right before they set foot on the town's property to begin working. So this eliminates paper, mishandling of enrollments and terminations. It automates the system both for the administrators and the employees, and it ensures accuracy of monthly invoices. This would also handle all new hire and termination COBRA rights notices. So as you bring in a new employee, it would automatically send out the new hire rights for COBRA. As you term an employee, those COBRA rights would then go out and allow them to elect COBRA if they chose to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So this is just a snapshot of the ease platform that we talked about. We talked about it being for onboarding. It brings the employee right to their benefit administration. We have reporting for you as well. So as that employee finishes their onboarding, we would give the payroll department all of their deductions from the W-4 and the 2104. We would let them know the withholdings, and the benefit deductions would also be sent to the payroll department, and they could manually load that right into the system. Or we can connect ease to your payroll system and allow for that to automatically flow without need for human interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we know that you use a broker right now for employee benefits. We would be remiss if we didn't tell you that we are also brokers. By becoming a client of ours, it would allow HR and benefit administration to flow seamlessly right through our agency. So change is absolutely wonderful, and I'd like you to think about embracing that change. So in summary, one of the reasons I decided to open the agency is to stand out where compared to others. And I really feel we do that, and we do a great job of it where it comes to the broker services. So a traditional broker, we're going to do all of the same things that you get currently today. We're going to come in, we're going to deliver your renewal, we're going to do an RFP, we're going to go out and source the best carriers and pricing for you. We're going to build out your administration system for you. And we're going to have employee meetings and communications. But where we take it a step further is that we're going to update you on compliance and legislation. And we're not just going to send you an email that you have to read and try to figure out how that applies to your organization. We're going to tell you how to apply it to your organization, where it needs to be housed. Does it need to be in the handbook? Does it need a required posting? We also do an electronic new hire benefit presentation. This, again, could sit right inside ease. So instead of your personnel department trying to explain benefits, which isn't maybe something that they're super familiar with, They would have a 40-minute presentation on how the plans work, who the carrier is, what the differences are between the plans. They would know how to enroll, when to expect an ID card. All of that would be explained to them, just like it is at open enrollment when your employees sit down to hear about their benefits for the year. So your new hires are getting that same treatment that your current employees are getting. And it's freeing up your staff to do other more strategic things. We also have an employee benefit hotline that's dedicated to your employees and spouses. I don't know about you, but the personnel department becomes a revolving door of, I don't have an ID card, I lost my wellness card, I have a claim, my wife doesn't understand benefits, you name it, it's said. Instead of coming into the personnel department, they would call our hotline, and it's manned with licensed benefit counselors that would answer their questions. They intimately know your plans, they know how things work, they know your eligibility rules, and they would walk that employee through that. At the end of the year during enrollment, we would give you a stewardship report that would let you know what we've been doing for the whole year, how many times your employees called in, how many issues there were, anything you needed to know. And then, of course, after open enrollment, when all of the invoices get really messy and nobody can figure anything out, we take on the audit for you. So we go through all of your invoices to make sure that the proper people are moved into the proper plans if there was any sort of movement, and then we make sure that your invoices are right for the balance of the year. So we don't leave you alone just because your renewal's over and the hard job of the broker is over. We make sure your invoices are 100% correct. So basically, we handle almost 90% of all of the administration for your team. And that is where I'm going to open it up for discussion.
First question I have is, obviously, dealing with municipal clients, public sector government, is a little bit different than a private sector, and you spoke to, point one and point two and how you're stronger in one than the other. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the municipal clients you may have right now and some of the experience that you've had in the past?
Sure.
Because, adding on to that, things that come to mind are like job descriptions, like civil service and stuff like that.
Right. Absolutely. So we do have a municipality that overlaps your municipality right now. We do work directly with their unions and their labor attorney where necessary. The majority of our time is spent with administration, though. It is not spent with the unions until benefits come into play or something comes up that we need to be involved in. In the past, in my 17 years, we've had, I don't even know, with all the agencies that I've worked at, municipalities are one of the most popular things that brokers go after. So we've worked for the town of Hanover. We've worked for East Aurora. I mean, there's so many in my past. I can certainly give you references if that might help.
I think it's a good start, so
Okay.
that's helpful, thank you.
And we have the Village of Depew today.
Yeah, that's what I thought, aren't you?
Yeah.
The Village of Depew uses you.
Yes.
Okay, so how do you do that at Depew? Because they really don't have a personnel department at all.
No, they have Terry.
Pardon me?
They only have Terry.
Oh, okay.
And a few
The
ladies
administrator.
in like payroll and things like that. So it's different.
So you take it all on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Use
There-
your microphone, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not as manual as you might think. We've put some things into place that help us.
Well, I'm sure that if
Yeah.
they can use you for almost everything with one person.
Right. Absolutely. Any other questions?
I think that was it about the job descriptions. So do you have the civil service job descriptions, or, because we don't make up our own, we have to follow civil service.
We would do
Yeah.
that with you. So we don't
Mhm.
have them in
So is that what you do with Depew too, is
Yes.
the civil service, because I'm sure they have to follow
Yeah,
that
they
too?
feed us some of that information, and then we go ahead and add it into the other, the
Mhm.
format that we have for them, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Linda, use your microphone though.
Are
That's it.
you on site? Is someone here, or is it all computer, everything is done through the computer to your office, wherever that is? Is there any human interaction is what I'm trying to ask you?
Oh, yeah. So it's not on-site every day, it's on-site as needed. Typically, we may have a biweekly HR meeting to begin with, or maybe a little bit more frequent. It really depends on the need of the client, but yes, I am on-site when necessary. A lot of times it has to do with terminations and things like that I'll come on-site and help out. Much of what we can do can be done remotely.
So like, you would put a onboarding plan together for us. What about the offboarding plan?
We would also do that. So in ease, if we were to use technology, we would have a standard operating procedure that we create with the town so that everybody knows when to expect communication from us or when we expect communication from you. But we would have an onboarding and an offboarding to make sure that payroll knew what to expect from us, because when we do terminate someone in ease, we will have to let payroll know if they're not aware. It really depends on how the inner workings of the town behave. So we would set up a project plan for that and then go through what everybody needed to know from us and what we needed to know from them.
That would be good, yeah, because we really have no set system in
Right.
place at all, so we have to get something together, and I know that
Absolutely.
Brian was working on that with us, with me and some of the other departments, trying to get that together.
And all of this really, I mean, depending on what the town wanted to use us for, all of this would transition into a project plan. So there would be timelines given as far as, you know, when do we expect this to be done and ready to be implemented? Who's in charge of it? How often are we meeting about it? And I would be able to give that to the council, my notes on where we are on different projects and initiatives as needed.
That would be good.
Okay?
So I had a couple of questions, and you've answered some already. If you have accounts similar to our size, and you answered that with Councilman Nowak. So your services are similar to an ADP, except you're local. You're right here. We can get somebody, have you pop in right away if we need it, correct?
Right, we are
Fair.
local, we're in Tonawanda.
Yep.
Did you mean ADP?
ADP, yeah.
Yes, yeah, so many people consider us to be similar to a PEO, a professional employment organization. We just don't lease employees, but we do many of the services that ADP, Paychex, ESC do.
And in addition to that, are your services à la carte? Like if we just wanted, you know, a certain portion and not the rest, or handful?
Absolutely.
Okay. And the last question, what about the liabilities? Who takes that on? So let's say for workers' comp or something's filled out wrong or not turned in, or the audit or whatnot, the liability of penalties, fines, does that still fall on us as a town, or does that fall on you because you're responsible for that? Do you take on that liability?
It would fall on you as the employer.
That's all I had, thank you.
Sorry.
No, no,
And I know that Ryan Horsman, we were talking about giving him a full-time assistant, but he couldn't find anybody, so this also was another option, because this is all this nitty-gritty that he needed somebody to start putting in place, so. Use your microphone, make sure you,
I've used similar systems, so I'm very familiar with what she's talking about.
well, that's good, yeah, that's great. Well, thank you,
Thank you,
Kristen, for coming out. Thank you very much, and we will get back to you. I didn't have Kristen put any pricing together, because I said if we want to go in that direction, we would decide, and then you would present us with an RFP, and as well as whoever else wanted to.
Okay, great. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
We really appreciate it. Okay, the next, we have Mark Biefeld here, there he is, to talk about the sanitation Packer truck bids that came in, I believe, right?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Back in May, there was a resolution to send out an invitation for bids for 2 new refuse trucks for the sanitation department. There was only one sole bidder that sent back their proposal to us, and that was Fleet Maintenance. They sent it back with a 32 cubic yard packer on there, and there was discussions amongst the board members, including some department heads, that questioned whether or not we should have looked into a 28 cubic yard packer body, and I was requested at a later work session to rebid it. So I rejected that initial bid, sent out a new invitation to bid.
And it
then-
was also the make of the
It was,
Packer.
yeah, McNeilius, yes, which
That's
that was
right.
the first one as well. Well, the first one did come back. I did get an updated proposal with the McNeilius, but we also wanted to have a discussion about what the cost difference is between a 28 and a 32 Packer body
Right.
would be. So I sent out a new proposal, and I received the proposal back, a new bid, and then I received the proposal back roughly a month ago, and I'm just giving you my update to it. So I sent it out to 3 different companies, Regional, Hunter, and Fleet Maintenance. Fleet Maintenance, again, was the only company that submitted proposal for it. We did it as an Alt-A for the 28 cubic yard Packer body, and in Alt-B for the 32 cubic yard Packer body. There are minute differences in money. I think the total for the 28 cubic yard was $530,000 for the 2 vehicles, $530,114, and for the 32 cubic yard refuse vehicles was $531,736. So you're talking a grand total difference of $1,622 for the 32 versus the 28 for the difference. And I just wanted to give you an update on that and figure out what direction you want me to take this and for the submittal for the approval, because it's about over a year, up to a year and a half to get these vehicles submitted to us. So it's kind of, time is of the essence at this point, and I was wondering what the body has decided on this.
Any questions or comments?
No, basically, we've been through this before, and I think pretty much everybody on the board knows we're looking at the 28-yarders for the simple reason our sanitation department was totally overloading these vehicles. And I agree with you, there isn't much different on the cost, but when you look at the next 10 or 15 years that we're gonna run these trucks, if they continue with the 32-yarders overloading them, what's the cost gonna be, Mark? It's gonna be astronomical based on what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, that I don't know. It's not my expertise. I do understand what you're saying with that. I guess that is the determination of the department head actually looking at the weight tickets to verify that the trucks aren't being overloaded. But that's a different scenario. That's not me. That's just looking for the actual, what direction you want me to take this at this point for approving them.
Well, that's why we brought it up about the 28-yarders, which I think is the way to go. Plus, it's also a safety issue in my book. Life cycle cost, everything. It's probably the only way that we're going to be able to actually force these guys to dump halfway instead of winding up with 15, 16, 17 ton running illegal on these vehicles.
Yeah. I know that was an issue last time we had this discussion and I was up here. I don't know what transpired with Scott Cowell last time. When I had a conversation with him, he was mandating that his guys dump and not have an overweighted vehicle. So I don't know if that's a policy and procedure scenario or not. It's just one of those things that I just want to make sure I informed you of what the cost difference was between the two and how we wanted to proceed forward, because like I said, time is of the essence when getting these things submitted so they can get them built for us. And the longer we take, the more time it's going to take to get them in.
So these are essentially the same vehicle, but the yardage is the big difference, right?
The exact same specifications as far as the trucks themselves. It's the Packer bodies that are different. One's built for 28 cubic yards and the other one's built for 32 cubic yards. So it's kind of the cost difference is minute in nature, and the grand total of all this of $1,600 and some change.
For 2, you're
For 2
saying?
of them, yeah,
Oh,
for a
okay.
total of 2.
That's-
For the total price, but it's that where he weighs the mechanical, for the overweighing and all the, the mechanical issues that could be versus do we want the bigger because we could accommodate it for, a cheap price.
How long do those last? Are they supposed to last?
That, it's dependent on its use and everything like that. I mean, like you said, if it's a vehicle's overworked, it's gonna break down more often. The warranties, they go from anywhere between 2 years and 4 years if we get an extended warranty on them, but that's an additional purchase on our behalf for the warranties on specific parts of the vehicle. So it's hard. I mean, anything after pretty much 5 years, the town's responsible for it, is pretty much how it goes.
Can you tell me if there's a difference like in the suspension
That,
and between the bigger size and the
yeah,
smaller
so
size?
earlier, I did want one of the department heads, at least here, either Central Garage and/or Scott Coel from Sanitation, because they're the experts in this. So what I did is, they asked me to put this bid spec together for them, for the purchase of these vehicles. And I don't know the inner workings. I'm not the expert residence on this. I just designed the proposal, sent it out for bids, and I received the proposals, and now I'm presenting you, the information that was submitted back to me. They're not here to answer specific
No,
questions like that.
I
You
know
would have a better
Scott said
idea.
he was on vacation.
Vacation, yeah, Scott was on
And
vacation.
I don't even think he was reachable,
I
so.
just thought it'd be a good idea for me at least to come up here and present it to you, because like I said, time is of the essence. And the longer we wait, the longer the vehicles are gonna take, and our trucks are definitely falling apart.
Well, I think the gross vehicle weights on both those vehicles is the same.
Yes,
I think that, what, it's 64,000 pounds, is that correct?
it's right around that area.
Yeah, and I think the only difference with the 28-footer, the wheelbase is a little bit shorter.
Yeah,
I'd like to hear
it's
what you
minute
said.
differences on that. I only printed up the basics, original pages showing the actual cost of the bids. I don't have the specifications with me, or I could look that information up on the spot, but again, I would probably defer that question to either Scott or Kevin Godzik.
Yeah, we probably need them here.
Yeah, so it's kind of one of those deals. I wish they were here, but again, time is of the
I didn't want to
essence.
wait too long. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Councilmember.
Maybe we should wait until Scott comes back from
He
vacation.
can be here in 2 weeks. I don't know what, another 2 weeks for our next meeting.
What about speaking with Kevin Godzik or Godziak as far as
So it's.
what
it's-
goes on these trucks? What are the biggest
So
problems?
this has been
Maybe
an
he should
issue
be
because
here,
Kevin is, and he's rightfully so, concerned with the maintenance of the vehicles, as Jerry brings up. And Scott, obviously, the more he could fit on there, even though it may be, we don't want it to overload, but it's a bigger thing. If he needed to at some point in time, he has the capacity for it. So one wants the 32, one's looking more at the 28, and it's kind of that decision that needs to be made, how we want to proceed forward with it. Again, it's a procedural thing with the sanitation department. Don't overload your vehicles. Shouldn't be an issue, other than maybe more maintenance, but you have more expertise than I am. On some
Well,
of that.
Mark, basically what it comes down to, everything from brakes, tires, to suspension, to springs, everything, transmissions, engines, everything. 'Cause like I said, from time to time, I've looked at the weight tickets. Some of them are 5, 6, and 7 ton overweight. Plus, it's not good for our town streets either. It's going to shorten the life of those. Plus, and this is my feeling, because we've gone through this years ago, when we bought some trucks that had 2-wide turning radius, and you couldn't make right-hand turns on some of the side streets with them.
Yeah. that's
It's like I said, especially streets off of William Street. But I think the biggest thing is the maintenance end of it, mainly because these trucks are being totally overloaded. Not even the maintenance, the liability on the town side, not only the town side, the driver. Driving those trucks loaded, if they ever get in a fatality, the pockets will not be deep enough in my book.
Sure, that's understandable. My suggestion at this point then is, because there isn't an expert up here that could actually answer these questions to satisfaction that you're gonna require it, I would probably say hold off, request that Scott and Kevin be here at the next town board work session, and have them give their reasons of why one wants it and one doesn't at this point. Like I said, it's just us waiting, I've told the sales manager at Fleet Maintenance now, I put him off for 4 months, and he keeps emailing me saying, you don't understand.
I know.
The more you wait, the longer it's gonna take, and he keeps giving me warnings about it. So I'm just trying to be proactive and trying to get a decision.
Has he said anything about the wait times increasing?
Yes,
Because
oh yeah, they're
that's-
increasing.
because
That's why
it-
I'm pushing it like I am, because 4 months ago it was a year. Now he's
Yeah.
talking up a year and a half. So that was just 4 months ago. So it keeps increasing exponentially, and I just want to make sure that we're not caught with vehicles breaking down now where they're out of service, and we're scrambling to try to figure out how we're going to get people's garbage picked up.
It's the same thing like you're buying material goods in the supply chain.
Correct.
The waits are getting longer for certain things, they're stagnant for others, it depends what you're dealing with. But with something is all the different moving parts in a garbage truck, you're likely to wait longer and longer because you could be waiting for that one little piece, you know?
Correct, yeah.
But based on what I know right now and the discussions we've had, if the price is nearly identical, I mean, if we're talking basically the same truck and the Packer's the big difference, I mean, we do have some narrow side streets, and we're talking about, the weight that these things are holding. I've got a preference for the 28, but if you guys feel we need 2 more weeks, I can respect that.
That's the decision of the board to make. I mean, my recommendation, if you have additional questions that I'm unable to answer, I would suggest that you talk to Scott and Kevin about it to get better
I don't know if we're gonna
answers to
get
that. If
anywhere.
not, you can make a decision now, and I could have this approved tomorrow.
Anybody else want to
for-
give any input, council members? Well, okay, Linda, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to get some more input on the turning radius, that's another thing. I
Yeah.
mean, is there
Mhm.
a difference between the two size trucks?
Yeah, good idea. So I think, Linda, what you're saying, you want to bring them both back in to ask them these questions. And Chris says, I'm in agreement with that too. So I think the next meeting, it's only 2 weeks away, but
Is this something, so we're definitely all in agreement that we're getting 2 new trucks and that we need to. Is this something that we can start the process, the work, and how much time do they give for like a change order to say? So let's say we call them tomorrow, because it sounds like the trucks and everything's identical except the
the
Packer
size,
itself.
yeah.
Yeah,
So if they could start to work on that,
The chassis and everything is, if you're probably buying it as a package deal, they probably already have the chassis. They're buying it from a manufacturer, whether it's Peterbilt, I think it may be Peterbilt or something like that. So that is just putting a purchase order in for it. It's McNeilius and their body and their packer that they're gonna be working with for them to actually manufacture that portion of the refuse body. So I don't know how I could ask tomorrow. I could,
Or at least have the resolution ready to go,
I already have it ready to go.
except, okay.
he's ready
so
to go
Just whether or
tonight, put
not
it
I
on
gotta
Maybe
a
we
late
could
file.
be ready to go with the
It's-
resolution
I'd
and
have
just
this ready.
have that in there and put it under waiver items. If we have them come to the work session, we make the decision
Yeah,
and
as soon
put
as
it
the
under.
decision's made, I will have that thing approved, so we're not
So
sitting
can you
on
be
it.
ready with the resolution for the next meeting,
I
and
can
we'll
be-
bring them
yes,
in,
absolutely.
and then maybe we can make a decision after we listen, and find out exactly what we need.
Okay, and in the meantime, I'll give Fleet Maintenance a call, let them know that, we're
Something will
moving
be coming.
forward. Can they at least start the process, and I'll make sure that I have that approved, and see what they say, so it can't hurt.
So you
Okay.
could probably submit that resolution into Minitrack, like with the blank number. So Kim would be able to have it, correct, Kim?
Okay,
And what does he submit it as draft?
so,
well, could he put both resolutions through and then we just pull the one?
We could do
Put it
that,
the
or just
28 and the
enter
32 exactly the same,
that's-
and then we just pull the one right out.
I could do that.
That's true, too.
You can,
Late file.
you can submit it with one, and then we can edit it at the work session if it needs to be changed.
Yeah,
Oh,
'cause
yeah.
it's
Edit
just
it.
changing the amount of money and literally the actual size of the Packer body.
Yeah, 'cause then
So
when we go
it's
through
not
the
a difficult
resolution
thing to do,
items.
and I could use the one that I already approved from last round. It's just literally changing a couple numbers on there for me, so it's
So we'll just
already.
submit one of those with the actual numbers, and then we can...
Okay, so at least we can get the process started.
Yes, and we'll
yeah.
have it ready. If we have to pull it or change it, we can do that at the work session. Is everybody in agreement?
Agreement?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
Not a
Mark, for
problem.
all your
Thank
hard
you.
work on this, and I got to remember to contact Scott and Kevin for the next meeting. Okay, meeting. All right, let's go through the town board resolution items for tonight. We do have, so we're going to do the police appointment first, because that's why it starts with Resolution 2. We really aren't demoting Mark Fata. We have to demote him in order to put him into this appointment of I think it's a appointment of detective. So 2 and 3 kind of go together. And he'll be here tonight with the chief. And then number 4 is appointment of a police sergeant, which is Sydney Deadline. And then but before that, we get to the resolutions, I just want to mention we have to do public hearings. We have a rezoning of the McKesson Parkway. This is the last one. We're going to just close it out. I don't know if we have any other comments. And then we'll talk about the Community Development CDBG funds. And listen if anybody from the public has any ideas they want to do. Then we'll do the 2 resolutions, and then Resolution 1 is actually part of the consent agenda, which is transfer of funds. And then we have the warrant. 3 is reappointment of the Board of Assessment Review, which is Mary Shem, one appointment, and then we have the Board of Assessment Review, Patricia Mountain, which is only the one-year appointment. And then 5 is the amendment to the agreement with Angela's House. Are you here, Rachel? Could you just talk a little bit about why we have to do this extra $200,000?
Sure, because of all the construction delays and labor shortages and everything that goes along with construction, the project was originally supposed to be done in July, and they're now expecting it not to be wrapped up until December. So because of increasing costs, they actually had a change order that they had issues with a gas line with National Fuel where they had to halt work, which prolonged everything also.
Can you just speak into the microphone? I don't know, is it on?
Yeah. So between all of that, they had an increase in $200,000 that they were asking for the project. It is a loan, it's not a grant, so
Oh,
it
all
will
right.
be paid off. And I believe it's 1% interest bearing, so we'll get annual interest payments, and then at the end of the term, they'll have to repay the entire balance in full. And
Okay.
I know the question was brought up about if this was going to take away from any other projects that we do. We have had a boatload because of the housing market of payoffs, loan payoffs, housing rehab. So this is funding. It won't take away from any other project that we do. It's just additional funding that we have putting towards it.
Okay. Well, it's good to know that it's just a loan.
Yes.
And I can see why, sometimes it does cost money with delays, so.
Yeah,
Anybody?
and like I said, between delays with construction materials and labor shortages and everything, it's prolonged things a little bit.
Okay. Any other council members have any questions? Okay, thank you, Rachel. Number 6 is the call for public hearing at 1460 French Road, the Dave's Christmas Land and French and Transit. Go ahead, Linda.
Is he planning on building this in the existing building, or is he planning on building a new building?
Okay, Rick, can you come forward, please, and just explain the project?
Yes, Council, I'm sorry, it is going to be inside the building, no exterior storage. It's going to be completely renovated and altered. It's going to look like a storefront. We're going to refinish the facade. The intent for the C retail, and the reason self-storage is not permitted in the C retail, it does typically require outdoor storage and outdoor access for self-storage facilities. In this sense, where we're getting an influx of storage, it was interior storage, climate controlled, for people who have items that they have to be protected and like seasonal demands. So what they're looking for is, like, when we have these apartment units going up, they have no garages, they have no sheds, and they have no basement. So just seasonal decorations, outdoor furniture, patio stuff, they need these smaller containment units that are also climate controlled, in logistically close to corridors that are heavily traveled, in close proximity to residential apartment units. As we've seen an increase in apartment units in that area, there's been a demand. We're continually requested in our department 4 additional spaces for life storage. We had the one on Cayuga, 3-story, that was a great couple $1 million development. We found out because of timing and logistics of COVID, that kind of went south with its financing, but there's been a demand in our department to ask for more locations, but unfortunately in our zoning, it's only in CM commercial districts, and they're typically not in areas where they're highly visible to residentials and on those corridors, except for gas stations that are partly those uses, but it's completely within the building. And there's some renderings provided, and they'll be here today at the public, at the board meeting if there's any questions to answer.
So, yeah, they don't have to, this is the work session, because this is
Right,
going
they're
to be
not
part
here.
of the consent agenda.
I know, so I told them they didn't need to be here if there's any
Yeah,
questions.
but if you want to pull it off, if they're here, we can always ask them that, too, before we vote. And this is just calling for the public hearing, too.
Correct. We felt in this case, instead of going for rezoning, a special permit that would bring in the public's comments, the board could hear that, and they could make a determination whether it's a good use and fit within a retail district.
Which makes sense, because that new development aren't those townhouses?
They're basically apartment units, and there's really,
Apartment,
yeah,
okay.
and they're.
I
and
thought, because the sign says townhouses, I don't know,
they're,
right next door to that
Right next
property.
to, right behind Kmart, those are apartment units, so they're not townhouses. There
Alright.
might be some townhouses across the
No, I
line.
thought the sign said, unless they have a mixture, I don't know, but.
Well, yeah, I'm not
I-
quite clear on
anyway.
that.
So, but I can see the need for this. I have a house and I'm running out of storage space.
Yes, and it's
So-
become this become an inquiry to us. We've had quite a few, where can we put them?
Yeah.
And because they're limited in certain areas, we don't have a lot of CM districts that are big enough to provide that, and that's why they're actually asking for rezoning, and we understand the challenge of rezoning, and I don't want to rezone a C retail district to a CM, which does allow outdoor storage. I have those in formerly like certain occupancies related to like Genesee Street. There was a former Tops, now it's Allied, and now they have all their trucks and all their equipment storage
Yeah, we don't
right on
want that.
Genesee, right near Union. I don't think that's necessarily a good fit, but it was a CM commercial district because they had the ability to store like wares outside for store, and now it got transitioned to a different use. And I think we should be cautious, and we go in to our rezoning to look at those types of uses and have controls on them. And that's been a challenge for
Because the
us.
special use permit then would pretty much go away if they ever sold that property, right? Or does it stay?
Yes, and for that permitted use, it goes along with that specific use for that
Unless
building.
some other storage company comes in.
Right, or something that used
They're
in the
gonna
same
leave
way.
it that
And it
way.
would again be the prerogative of the board to grant an extension or do a new special use permit for that.
And then it's going to look like a storefront. You said they're going to
Yes,
build it
all
out a little bit?
glass, yeah, it's all glass, it's all refinished.
But are they adding an addition on? you
No.
said? Oh, I thought you said they're going to,
Well,
build
in the
into the
out
park-
parcel, because it's now in retail, there's hundreds of parking spaces that are not being used presently. They have the ability now, because of the parking demand related to the storage, to take those parking spaces to go in part of our parcel and potentially develop that.
oh, so they might add
And
like
add
a
something in the front of
restaurant
that,
or?
exactly. We're
Okay.
finding in all these retails, in the Thruway Plazas, other huge parking areas that we would like to build in.
Mm-hmm.
But as I mentioned, in our deed restrictions we've had historically, including other parcels like the Apple Tree Mall, has that 5 spots for 1,000 square foot. They have 1,000 empty spaces over there that they just can't seem to develop because of the restrictions related to
Mm-hmm.
those uses. So we're gonna work with that.
Okay, so as long as we know it's looking like a storefront and you have to go in to the actual store
Yes.
to get to your storage
And
unit,
it's
not,
controlled, it's not, they have accesses all hours.
Like a
it's within
garage-looking
their working
thing.
hours.
Okay.
Yes.
Is he gonna get rid of the store?
Yeah, Dave's Christmas store is no longer gonna be in there, correct.
It's-
I
it's-
think
he
the
sold it,
Goodwill
right?
store is gonna still remain.
that's what I asked too about the Goodwill store. I thought
Right.
that people seem to like that store and it's so convenient over there right on
Mhm.
Transit, so. Okay, thank you, Rick. And number 7 is the award for the RFP for the ice machine at the Youth and Recreation Alexander Center. They have a big ice-making machine that they're asking for replacement on. And then the Dasher board contracts were up, so that's what Resolution 8 is for. Any questions on those two? 9 is the ECC hockey, use of our hockey rink. And 10 is with St. Mary's High School, use of the hockey, or our rink, ice rink. 11 is authorization of a student intern at the police department. 12 is youth and recreation transfers. 13 is youth and recreation terminations. Stop me if, if you have any questions, just chime in. 14 is youth and recreation hiring. 15 is termination of part-time and seasonal. 16, I don't know, I guess Jill Murphy's not here. I just noticed that Pat is leaving from her office. 18 is appointment of our Director of Youth and of Recreation, Crystal Find. 17 is appointment of the real property appraiser, Marcy Ann Kolb. 16 is appointment of a pump operator, Alexander Rower. Then we have travel authorizations for the police department for 19 and 20. And then there's a couple waiver items that Pat Bowen had put in resolution 1 under the waiver items for NICEAG to relocate a existing street light on Transit Road. And number 2 is authorize supervisor, this is in agreement with the Western New York Law Center to provide services with zombie homes, to either force the bank, right, to foreclose. Is that it, John? Because we have another agreement with Western New York Law Center to help families stay in their homes who are delinquent, but this is a house, there's some that we've found, and I'm sure Rick knows that he has his building inspectors seeing more and more of these zombie homes, that the bank still has it and won't foreclose. So this is going to help us get that done. So a family can move in and we can clean those up, right? I think that's it. Did I miss any other waiver items? There were only those 2? Okay. Any questions on anything? Okay, good. Then we will go into executive session. I need to make a motion to go in to discuss TCEA collective negotiations and the proposed acquisition or sale of real property. Could I get a second? Councilmember Pilarski, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carried. And we will return at 7 o'clock for the regular board meeting.